Ooh, those lights are very bright, aren't they? I have to say, it's hard following those other students, and I just wanted to say something that is not actually on my speech. Ryan said, you know, we need to stop talking about the poor Aboriginal student, and I have to agree. My brother was told when I was in Year 12 and he was in Year 7, if you're not careful, you'll end up like your sister. So I say to that teacher, I hope my brother ends up like me. I, of course, would also like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners of this land, and pay my respects to elders past and present, to all Indigenous people in the room, and to everyone else that's with us today. Nothing about us without us. It's a saying that's used a lot in Indigenous affairs. Pat Dudgeon said it at the Suicide Prevention World Leaders Dialogue. My challenge in public health for you guys is to actually take that one step further. Nothing about us that is not led by us. I want to see Indigenous people not just at the table, but at the head of the table, leading. I don't want to continue to see the token black. I want our mob designing, implementing, and evaluating our business. No one should be speaking on our behalf. I expect Indigenous voices to be privileged and prioritised on our own business. We shouldn't just be consulted on our issues. We should be making the decisions ourselves. Why doesn't this happen already? I believe this is for two main reasons. One, the clear power imbalance, and also the deficit lens through which we're viewed. And I don't think that these things are exclusively Australian Indigenous issues either. They're felt by Indigenous peoples around the world. Across the world, Aboriginality and Indigeneity has been defined and owned by non-Indigenous people. We've been told where we can live, who we can marry, what we can eat. The UN Permanent Forum is on Indigenous issues. It's not led by us. The majority has the power. I've worked across a number of public health fields, including research, policy, and media. All of those spaces, when it comes to Indigenous affairs, are dominated by non-Indigenous people. We have a research project in this country which is looking at Indigenous cultural competency, which is funded by the Australian Health Ministers' Council, which is led by non-Indigenous people. We had the former Premier of Western Australia, Colin Barnett, announcing that he was going to close up to 200 Aboriginal communities without consulting any of those communities. The Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Nigel Scullion, just recently launched $10 million for a pilot suicide prevention project without discussing it with the pilot communities first. Now, Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. For the last 200 odd years, the lack of Indigenous engagement in our affairs hasn't really done us any favours. It's time for non-Indigenous Australians to stop pretending that they are the solution. We are. While non-Indigenous Australians are making decisions on our behalf, they're part of the problem. Now, we aren't perfect, we're going to make mistakes, there's no doubt about it, but I stand here knowing we will do better than what's being done for us currently. And it's not just the power imbalance which holds us back, but the deficit lens from which we're viewed. I recognise that it's the gap in life expectancy and the overrepresentation in the criminal justice system which drives investment in Indigenous affairs. But what I also recognise is that the drawback of this is that we're constantly seen as deficit. Dr. Chelsea Bond, who's been here this week, has actually said, charting a community's deficit only seems to deepen the despair. And while we continue to be only seen as deficit, how are we ever going to be trusted to run our own affairs? Now, this is not to say that there's not a space for non-Indigenous people. There most clearly is. As Ryan pointed out, we're only 3% of the population. We can't do this by ourselves. We need strong allies. We need people who will actually support us to do things our way. We need people to act as a facilitator and use their white privilege to our advantage. We need Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in this country to be the directors and actors of our own affairs, with non-Indigenous people to be the backstage crew. Now, I stand here because of the people that have come before me and who continue to support me, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. Some of them are in the room here with me today. Michael Moore is the reason why I am a strong part of the PHAA, and I say thank you to him. Melissa Sweet, who I have gotten involved with Croaky. And there's other people in my life, like Jenny Judd, who's one of my supervisors, the non-Indigenous people. But there's also a large number of Indigenous people who have supported me. My mother, she always gets a big shout out. Always. Les Mauser, Jeff Scott, the list could go on. Now, I actually had a little addition to my speech beforehand because of the World Federation of Public Health Associations meeting that they had. So I stand here and recognise there's over 300 million recognised Indigenous people around the world, and I stand here confident and happy to announce that the World Federation has supported the need for an Indigenous working group. Now, that Indigenous working group was born here at the yarning circle that you would have seen outside. We had 40 delegates from around the world, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, come to discuss it and agreed with it. And that is now, we're at the 50th year of the World Federation, and we have our first Indigenous working group. Now, this will be led by Adrian Te Patu from New Zealand. I finish by saying, nothing about us without us, nothing about us that's not led by us.